Welcome to the Guitar channel. I am super happy to welcome you a new interview. I am with the one and only JD Simo at the New Morning. JD, how are you doing in Paris?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. Yeah. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you have a nice haircut and me too.
Well, there you go. Yeah. See, the good minds think alike.
So you have to tell us, JD, how is your knee? Last time you were in France, it turned out not really good. So how is it?
I'm good. Knock on wood. Yeah. Hopefully I'll make it through the show tonight because then I'll finally finish the show in Paris.
Okay. Are you jumping all over the stage again?
Yeah, I guess somewhat, you know. I mean, I'm forever scarred by that experience, but I try not to think about it now. It's I was able to heal relatively quickly. It was rough there for a month or two, but whatever. I didn't see that one coming. I don't think. How could you?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So obviously you are playing the ES 335 tonight. No Les Paul for you tonight?
No, I haven't been playing the Les Paul as much lately. I kind of. This is comfort zone for me at the moment, and Gibson is doing a signature model of this coming out in a couple of months, and and so. I'm just really comfortable with this at the moment, and this is the one I've had longest. And but I hadn't brought this over to Europe yet, and so I brought it for the summer tour. And I mean, it's just the one that never leaves my side. You know,
so that's a true vintage, your own true old friend, and so on.
Yeah, 62. I've had it for several years now, and I've promptly beat it up and put a lot of marks on it. So
completely stock, pickups and everything, or anything special?
The pickups are it had a Bigsby on it when I first got it. I took the Bigsby off. That's not much of a modification. I took the pickguard off because I like to put my hand down here. I had Joe Glazer in Nashville put this switch right here, which knocks the pickups out of phase. Which actually is going to be in the signature model as well. But other than that, I mean, you know, the pickups are original and bridge, and you know, it's never been, you know, I haven't cracked it yet. I'll probably crack it tonight now that I said that. But yeah, you know, pots are the original. So yeah.
Do you need to adjust when you go to from playing this to a Les Paul, or you are so used to those guitars that makes no difference for you?
There is a little bit of adjustment, but I kind of go in phases where I don't like to change guitars that much. So it's like I was playing the Les Paul for about a year solid, and then in the summer I got this back from Gibson. And
because they were working on the prototype?
Yeah, and so I got this back, and it's just I haven't played really another guitar since. There is a little bit of adjustment, but I think it's just I kind of go in cycles where it's like whatever feels comfortable, you know.
I remember last time we met in November in Paris, you were playing a true Les Paul standard, vintage one, and I was scared. And you told me during the interview, well, you know what, you're going to check the guitar after that, so... so you still tour with the vintage Les Paul once in a while? Yeah, no problem.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, like I said, it hasn't been out. I haven't taken it out lately because I'm really comfortable with this. But yeah, I'm not afraid to. I mean, I already brought it all over the world twice, I think. So that's fine. You know, just be careful. Don't leave it unattended.
All right, so let's talk about Let Love Show the Way. How was it recorded?
It was just recorded in about a day and a half at the big house, which is the Allman Brothers' old house in Macon, Georgia. We had actually recorded a whole nother record previous to it, which had got us our record deal, and they wanted us to do some bonus tracks, and so we went to Macon just to do the bonus tracks, and we ended up making like a whole nother record in those 2 days. And so we saved some of the tracks from the first batch, but it's mostly the stuff we recorded there in Macon. It was just done really quickly and really simply, and you know.
And can you detail how you compose? Can you walk us through the very first initial idea of a song until the finished product or finished recording song?
Oh, well, it can happen lots of different ways. I mean, one is that the three of us are improvising together, and we find something that we think is good, and then we kind of make that into a form, with which I'll usually kind of go away and write lyrics to it, or there are times, especially now, because we're approaching 200 shows for this year. Next week when we're in Britain, we'll hit 200 for the year, and we haven't had the time. Like, we haven't been home. We've been on the road solid all year since January. So now, because we're making a new record right when we finish this tour, and we've already started work on that record actually before we left on this tour. So a lot of cases now I'm bringing in stuff that I've written on my own to kind of arrange, if you will, with the guys. That's becoming more normal just because of the nature of how much time we have, you know, because the days of us being able to just kind of get together every day for a couple of weeks and kick around and jam and so on and so forth, it's just we don't have the time anymore. So it's like we've had to kind of find a way to kind of keep throwing material on the pile for the next record without, you know, kind of wasting time, as it were, you know.
And do you start, I don't know, with the melody in your head or with a chord progressions, or do you have a...
Usually it starts with a chord progression or something that seems like, oh, that's cool. And then the melody is something that I'll just experiment and improvise vocally and just find something that I think is good. And then usually I'll end up writing the words last. But that being said, there's a handful of, you know, situations where maybe I wrote the words first, or... You know, I mean, there's lots of different ways. I mean, it can happen every which way. But generally, I write more to form, where it's like I'll get a kind of a piece of music together that I think is good, and then I'll find a melody that seems to work, and then last figure out what it's about. And that can take a while. I mean, there's things lying around now that are years old that I just never, you know, because I'm really bad at like forcing writing. I think that I'm much more, you know, it happens when it happens, kind of a thing.
When the song is ready, it's ready, and it's going to come out, and when it's not ready, well, it will be for later. Or?
Yeah, or you could force it and it'll be shit. In my opinion. Most of the time.
So you just said that you recorded the album very fast. So does that mean that everybody was, well, the three of you were live in the studio and hit the record button and here we go?
Oh yeah, no, there's very little, the vocals are live, there's no edits, there's no, yeah, I mean, it was very quick, very fast, and it's very much kind of a document of those couple of days last year. We're kind of, which is nice, because now making this next record, we can now do the opposite of that. We can actually craft a record, and because you don't have to do the same thing every time. And so it's afforded us a lot of freedom now, because I feel like on that record we were able to kind of, you know, introduce people to what it is that we were, and it's more of a live, raw kind of a thing, where now we can, you know, now we have all this room for growth, you know, that you wouldn't normally. So.
And how do you work on your solo? Is it prepared in advance or fully improvised all the time?
Oh yeah, no, I don't prepare at all when it comes to that. That's completely just whatever.
That's not fair. That's not fair. You know, it's not fair.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. No, because I don't do well with that. And when I was a session musician, it was the same thing. Part of the reason why I was a good session musician was because I would just not think about it and just play whatever came out. And when you're a session player, options are good. Like, a producer likes it when you give him lots of options. And so I'm terrible at learning something note for note and playing it the same way every time. I'm horrible at it. I'm terrible. I'm great at, if you just leave me alone, I'll do it different every time. And that's one of the things that made me a great session musician, because I was able to, you know,
to provide many ideas. And
yeah, that's one of the things. And so that, you know, luckily, you know, now in the context I'm in now, it's I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And do you need an outside listener to tell you, okay, this is a good solo, we're keeping this one, or it was that it was the three of you to decide, or how did you do
I mean,
that?
it helps. It just depends. I mean, sometimes you know that sometimes it's easy to know. I think that it musically, it comes with maturity. The longer you kind of work on music, I think the easier it is to know when something's right and also to know when something isn't right. But yeah, I mean, I think trusted third opinions are extremely important. And so yeah, the guys in the band, our engineer Nick, you know, this time on the record we're starting to make, we're actually making with a producer, an old friend of mine who goes back a long way. Because I don't want the responsibility this time that I did last time. I actually want to just make the record, and because one of the things I learned in making the last record is that as a producer, you know, there's say there's like 5,000 little decisions to be made in the making of a record. Yeah. Well, the producer is the one that in the end has to make every one of those, or at least approve every one of those. Yeah. And you know what, man, there's 4,500 of those that I really don't care about as much, you know? So it's like I'm happy to leave those to somebody else and focus on trying to make the songs the best they can, and if there's a way I can make something better without worrying about, you know, the tone of the snare drum on this too, you know what I mean? Like it's because there's a lot to bear in mind when making a record.
Let's talk about gear. What did you use on that record to get the massive tone we hear?
Well, thanks. Well, it was that head that you saw that time a year ago.
The loud one?
Yeah, the loud one. It was that old Marshall 100 watt, and then I had a little trainer, an amp from Canada, that I used on some of the stuff as well. It was a little 112 trainer combo, and it was either there was a, you know, I used Dwayne's guitar, Dwayne's Les Paul on some stuff. There's a Flying V on one of the tracks. There's a lot of the guitars were kind of all over the place. Effects wise, very little if nothing, a wah-wah pedal, you know.
No overdrive or boost, straight to the amp.
Yeah, no matter what the amp is, and that continues to this day, you know. So even though the rigs change quite a bit.
Yeah, what are you going to play tonight amp-wise?
I've switched over to old Fenders, old Super Reverb. Yeah. And I did that in the summer. That along with, I've got this old Epiphone amp that Michael Bloomfield used with Bob Dylan, most notably. Not his, but the same model, which is rare. And I actually had one shipped over here on the summer tour because I love it a lot. And those two together I really, really like. Okay. So
and is that because you are playing more the 335, that switch amp, or not related at all?
No. It had more to do with that tour where I hurt myself. I was also feeling a little creatively stifled because the tone I was getting was great, but it was a tone that was very reminiscent of so many of my heroes that it was kind of, I was feeling kind of boxed in by that, and I wanted to see if I could branch farther, to see if I could find something that was maybe something that could potentially be more inspiring for me and maybe a little more open, where I wouldn't be so easily kind of, I'm going to try and play like Duane Allman, or does that make sense? Okay. And so switching really has helped me, where every night now, ever since I made the change, it's kind of wide open palette, and I don't really have a preconceived notion.
So you wanted to get out of the Les Paul into Marshall kind of...
I did. I mean, maybe not the guitar as much, but I wanted to get away from the Marshall thing because I just thought it was great and I loved it, but I wanted to see if I could find something that was maybe a little bit more open, and that me, when I'm standing there playing, wouldn't be so kind of, because of the sound I was hearing kind of going in a certain direction, something that was maybe going to inspire me to kind of play a little different. Okay. And so making the change and basically kind of stripping away all of my comfort, because it was stripping away a hell of a lot of comfort. It really helped, and also compositionally it helped a lot too, because then it kind of spurred a lot of the newer material that we'll be making this next record with. There was a kind of a natural evolution that kind of happened right around that time with all of us in the band, and my gear changing was kind of one part of that. Okay. But that's when you play hundreds and hundreds of gigs, hopefully you evolve, and so that was I think it was just a part of a natural evolution.
What's the usual setting you have on the amp? Everything on 10, and you control the rest from the guitar?
Yeah, well, the volume's on 10, just like the old days. But I usually put the treble up most of the way, and then the middle I usually put on 6 or 7, and then the bass I usually have lower, like 3 or 4, okay. And then this is on the super reverb, and then the reverb I change all night. Okay. Sometimes it's really high, sometimes it's low, sometimes it's off. I have the switch for the tremolo and the reverb, and I use that all night now. Okay. Because the tremolo, same thing. I use the tremolo a lot now, and I'll go back and turn the speed all the way up or turn it down. So I use those quite a bit now. Okay. So.
What do you think has changed in your guitar playing after playing 200 shows or so? What has evolved?
Well, I think I've settled where I feel more stylistically. Really, it goes beyond my initial input. I think it's the group. All three of us we're much more relaxed. We're much more kind of, with the new material that we keep adding into the shows that'll go on the next record. It's I think we're sounding more and more like us. And that's a conscious decision, though, because I think now if something is, whereas opposed to, okay, like a year ago, if something reminded us of something strongly, we might go, oh, that's cool, it reminds me of such and such. Whereas now, if something reminds us of something that's not necessarily a good thing, okay, then we want to go and we want to try and do something to try and make it not so much. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more of just with what we're listening to. We're not listening to a lot of rock music. We listen to a lot of R&B, and not even necessarily old. Like I turn the guys on to D'Angelo, and so now we listen to D'Angelo a lot. And I turn them on to the Roots, and so we listen to the Roots a lot. And same thing, and Erykah Badu, and like there's a lot of that's not rock and roll influence that has crept in. That is stuff that I really like, but it's contemporary in a sense, but it's very kind of different than kind of where we were sitting before. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that going on. But like I said, I think that's just natural evolution. If that's what you're aiming for. Some people don't. Mm-hmm. Some people I think are, they're cool kind of staying and just kind of, trying to do a truthful statement at that time. Yeah. But, the three of us we get much too bored for that.
I was very impressed last time I saw you live in Paris by the dynamic you have on stage with the bass player and the drummer. You can go from very loud to very quiet. So do you have any special trick to communicate? Do you blink? Is that a special move you do? Is that all rehearsed?
Sometimes you just say, shut the fuck up. Okay. But the other night I did. I got in trouble for that. No, not really. I mean, we don't really. We try and not have any cues at all. Okay. Because it forces us to listen more intently. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have a cue, you can rely upon the cue. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Yeah. That it's like if you know a cue exists, you can do the cue and execute something. Whereas if there isn't a cue,
you have more options.
It forces the three of you. It takes consistency out because some nights are going to be better than others. I mean, there's just no way to kind of make it where every night's perfect. But the nights where it is perfect, or the nights where it's really going well, it's that much more gratifying because it's like you're really it's just very dependent upon listening to one another. And so that's really the secret, is just listen, it's and it's very hard. I think it's very hard to get out of your own head and be focused upon what you're doing and what you're wanting to accomplish. And it's very difficult to think about the group and how everything is sounding as opposed to how just you're sounding. But if you can, the nights where you accomplish that, those are the really good nights.
As a word of conclusion, what would be your word of advice to get the right sound and the right performance night after night? Any secrets?
Oh, no. If anything, there is absolutely no secret. I think that,
Any survival tip?
Well, survival tip, I think that, you should, well, first of all, as a singer, get your rest, drink lots of water, because if your voice is gone, you're screwed. As a musician, though, I think that it's all about mindset, and I get up my own ass more than most. And it's like the nights where I'm just relaxed and, not feeling anxious or, whatever, just relaxed are the nights where I play, where everything seems to go better. So I think whatever you can do to try and get yourself into that calm place, you'll benefit greatly from it, Right. So smoke some weed or something.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, JD, and have a great concert tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.